here's what happens if you use primer and get too much primer. And of course here's a 3-inch pipe, so we got to use primer. Now primer is a purple material, and in this case they put the primer in here and they let it sit in the bottom, and they got a puddle in this bell right past the bell. When they glued the pipe together, there was still a puddle of primer laying in the bottom of the pipe. Well, that primer ate right through that pipe. It softened the pipe up. The minute they hit pressure to it, it just blew it open. So if you put too much primer, that's what's going to happen. It's going to soften the pipe up, and then when you pressurize it, it will literally blow a hole in it. What if you don't put enough glue in a pipe? Well, then another problem happens. Then water leaks out the side of it. Here's a case where the water leaked out the side of the pipe and actually eroded the PVC and ate a hole right through the PVC as well, from the fact that the water was etching around it. Most interesting phenomenon. About the only time I've ever seen that happen. But it actually etched through it just from the fact that the glue, they primered it, but you can see the glue ended right here. There ain't any glue from here clear over to here. And they didn't twist the pipe, just put it in and rotate it as you put it together. They just glued part of it and stuck her together, and it never sealed up, and so we got a real mess. And so you end up cutting that piece out and having to refit it up with a repair coupler, and it becomes a major cost, plus an inconvenience. My goodness, I got glue on my paper. So there are some twists to gluing, and it's a matter of practice makes perfect. So when you do your first gluing, it's going to be a bit of an experience, but you'll learn real quick. How you keep that puddle from collecting is that you want to make sure you drag out the excess primer so that you don't leave a puddle before you put the glue on. You put the primer on first, put your applicator in, and soak it back out before you pull it out. Riser height, again, in solid set, we want to make sure we set the heads at the proper height. If we're in turf, we want them flush with the ground or slightly below. We don't want any mower interaction with that sprinkler head. There's nothing worse than mower blight on sprinklers. And so we want to make sure that they're low enough they don't get whacked by the mower. When we're dealing with under tree, we want to make sure they're as low to the ground as reasonably possible and still clear the cover crop that we might have within the area of the orchard. If we're over tree, we have to make sure they're high enough to be above the highest limbs at the greatest growth stage of the year, which would be in the fall. And then we have to make sure they are straight up and down. And then with the sprinklers, when you attach those sprinklers, do not use any petroleum products. No pipe dope, no oils, no greases, because it will ruin the bearings and the washers in the sprinklers and contaminate the parts. So if you have to use any kind of sealant, you use Teflon. And you use Teflon for any threaded fittings as well. So if we're putting together valves, and we have threaded fittings where we're connecting valves to PVC pipe, we can use Teflon tape, or we can use liquid Teflon. Liquid Teflon is just a material that will act as a lubricant and a sealant, and yet it won't attack the material that the plastics or any of the washer materials are made out of. It's basically an inert material, an extremely good sealer. So Teflon tape or Teflon liquid form. The Teflon tape, you just wrap it on the fitting. Now from sprinklers,